Hello, this is Bob Burgess with Burgi View, and I'm just reporting to you how I'm doing on day 25 on the fast. But I'm also going to talk about endurance, which is obviously a big part of what has to happen and in order to get through a fast of 30 to 40 days. I'm going to tell you a little bit about from where that comes from, where you muster the strength to have endurance. But just to let you know where I am right now, I am down to, as of this afternoon, actually, 283. As you may recall, if you've been keeping up, a couple days ago, I gained almost 3 pounds, 2.9 pounds, and went from 281.9 up to 284.8. Now, how I did that, I don't know, but I did. When you're not eating anything, it's curious. I had to keep from spilling stuff there. It's curious as to how that could happen. But the next day, I lost 0.4 pounds. That is today. This morning, 0.4. So I came down a little bit, 24.4. Then I weighed again in the afternoon just to see what would happen. And I actually came down 1.4 pounds more. So 283 as of this afternoon, about 5:30 or so. So that means that I've lost right now 34.8 pounds. The average daily loss of that is 1.45 pounds. So I'm on my way. Now, I was not able to take my blood pressure because I broke the blood pressure monitor. I broke it. My blood pressure was so high that it just exploded. It busted. No, that's not true. But it did break. The blood pressure machine fell off, and the hose that goes in it got broken off, and you can't do anything with it. So I ordered a new one. Hopefully, I'll get that in tomorrow and be able to do that again. Now, my blood sugar is still hovering over 100. It was about 107. So it's outside of the normal into the pre-diabetic area, but of course I've been having it at 145 to 180 and sometimes over 200. So it's still much improved, but we'll see how it continues. I don't know what the mechanisms for all that is, but hopefully my pancreas will kick back in fully and start being able to handle put out insulin and take care of all that sugar in my system, so I don't have to use additional insulin, which I have not used, nor have I taken metformin for a while now. So it's at the point where I would, if my blood sugar was this, I went to the doctor for the first time, they would not give me any medication. They just say that you're in pre-diabetic. And so you need to watch what you're eating. Okay, so that's obviously I'm not watching what I'm eating because I can't see what I'm eating because I'm eating nothing. But I am drinking a few things here and there. A little bit of creamer is about the only kind of thing that has any caloric effect in me at all. So I keep going with that. But that's day 25. Now, I did get a question from Greg Mailer, a friend of mine here and lives in Leonard, Texas. He saw me in a convenience store here in town, and he asked me this question. I said, ask it online. Ask it in the comments section because I've been waiting to hear this question, and that is, do you poop? Surely that's gone through people's minds. What happens when you fast for this long? Do you poop? Well, I don't know about this for everybody, but the answer is sort of yes. I don't know what completely has happened. There's a little bit going into my body. I don't know how the body works there, but I have this urge to go, and sometimes it's a pretty significant urge to go, and then there's just a little bit, and maybe it's from the creamer, but I think a lot of it is from cleaning out the intestines, cleaning out the colon, and hopefully it's accumulating there and wanting to come out, and I'm able to clean things out a little bit. But I do, but it's very little. But I do, and I have been this going on for a while, that I have to go multiple times a day, and that's just been normal for me for a long time. So I still have that urge to go, but very little comes out. But some. So that's the answer to that question. Now, one of the things that the things you have to learn to be able to do is to go through difficulty. Go through the difficulty, meaning discomfort. Endurance is important. When Paul speaks of the fruit of the Spirit, he talks about patience or forbearance, which all deals with the idea of having to go through something and endure, that is a fruit of the Spirit. And so this is a way to latch on to that. Now, where do you get the endurance? Where does that come from? Well, I found some great instruction through the Bible, through this actually. If you look at what Paul wrote, he talks about pressing on to go through difficulty. He says, and he uses sports as an analogy, particularly a race. He says, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. So hear what he's saying. I press on towards the goal to win the prize. That's a forward-thinking thing. He has to look at what the prize is going to be. And that's in Philippians 3. In 1 Corinthians 9, he does talk about a race again. He says, do you not know that the race all runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the game goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last. But we do it to get a crown that will last forever. So in these situations, he's talking about running the race, which is an endurance race, but keeping your eye on something other than the race, but the prize, the crown that goes in front of us. Now, so that is the way that we are able to learn to endure, is to make sure that our eyes are not on what's going on right now. And the example of that, the writer of the book of Hebrews tells us why that is such an important quality, because it reflects Christ. It reflects God in Christ. And so he says in Hebrews 12, says, let's throw off everything that hinders us and the sin that so easily strangles us or besets us. And let us run, once again, the word run as though in a race, with perseverance. That's the idea of endurance, the race that's marked out for us. He says, fixing our eyes on Jesus. So once again, not on the moment, not what's going on right now, but to fix our eyes on something greater than this moment. And in this case, he says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. And then it says what he did. He said, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. So he went through what he had to endure on the cross. And it goes on to say, scorning its shame. So he did the scorn and the endurance, but it's for the joy that was set before him. For the joy. Jesus Christ did not limit his gaze to the pain and the affliction that he was going through. What he had to endure was not his focus, but his focus was the joy that was set before him. It goes on to say, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross and scorning shame, and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So what is that joy that he was looking towards? Well, it includes the idea that he was able now to sit at the right hand of the throne of God. Now, what does that mean? That's a position of power. That's a position of authority. But one of his many tasks to do there is that he intercedes for us. See, much of his joy was the fact that he was able to intercede for us. The writer of Hebrews talks about that. He sat down so that he could have endurance or intercession with us. He represents us to God the Father. He went through all of that because he had his eyes on the ability to bring salvation to us. Hebrews 12 goes on to say, consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So think about him, he says, so that you won't grow weary and lose heart. So the endurance that is necessary to go through this type of fast has to be that you cannot be focusing each day on the difficulty of the day or the hunger of the moment, but you have to have your eyes set on something beyond. Now, what is the prize for me? The prize is on many different levels. The prize is on being able to feel better, being able to feel more energy, being more active, the ability to not be embarrassed by the way I look, to be able to serve others and participate in life more. I remember a friend of mine used to always criticize about the preachers that would get up and talk about the sins of drunkenness and the sins of debauchery and all those kinds of things, yet they had a 60-inch waist around them. So they never really talked about the sin of gluttony. So in other words, what I'm saying is that there should be, I believe, a shame and embarrassment to represent Christ, at the same time not showing any kind of self-control or the ability to endure in order to be in a better position physically to serve him. And so take that. That's the position I've been in. I've been a speaker in the past. I worked for many years with Zig Ziglar Corporation. And I wasn't nearly this big at those days, but I was always bigger than I wanted to be. And so when I talked about goal setting, which is an extremely important thing, that's part of what I'm doing here, obviously, to be able to say that with too big of a belly was always a conflict within me. So being able to set my eyes on the ability to be congruent with what I say and what I do and how I appear, without having to be apologetic for that or to excuse that away. That's one of the things that I long to be able to do. Now that endurance, that's reflected by Christ, but he reflects the overall idea of who God is, God the Father in particular. He represents God the Father. He said, when you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Now throughout the Old Testament, there's a word that is one of the most beautiful words ever coined, ever developed. It's an enduring word that refers to a love that is enduring, that persists beyond any kind of sin against the person or the betrayal, and it points towards going through brokenness to go to forgiveness. It has a very rich and deep meaning that English cannot grab hold of. It's the word chesed. It's based in a covenantal relationship. It's talking about a steadfast, rock-solid faithfulness that endures for eternity. That's the God we serve. He is full of chesed. Now, the word has never been translated into one word. I mean, it's translated in one word several times, but many different words have been used to describe what hesed means. Hesed has been used to talk about love, loving kindness, mercy, graciousness. There's many different words in the Old Testament because one word quite captures it. It's about steadfast, enduring grace and mercy. All of those kinds of ideas wrapped up together. That is the God we serve. That is the God that shows us a love that endures. And if it endures, it has to go through something, go through some kind of pain. That's what endurance means. As a matter of fact, the word endurance, a Hebrew word that's used for endurance is the words koach sevel. I don't know if I say that right. I tried to listen to the pronunciation, so that's pretty close. But that is a combination of two words, koach meaning strength, and sevel meaning burden or difficulty. So when you combine strength with the idea of a burden, you have the word endurance. So God's love endures forever. Strength with a burden, with a difficulty, with sorrow. That's the quality of God we emulate when we endure. When we have our eyes set on a prize before us that he offers as endurance, as the prize, the crown of endurance. The picture of endurance that is in the Old Testament that very much grabs this is in Isaiah 53. And I'm going to read this to you. It says, he was despised and rejected by men. This is looking forward 700 years in the future to what the Messiah did for us. Yeshua, Jesus, did for us. He was despised and rejected. A man of sorrows, acquainted with sickness, and we did, as it were, we hid our faces before him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our sicknesses, burden. He has carried the burden of our sicknesses, carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, struck by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, and he was bruised for our iniquities. His sufferings were that we might have peace, and by his injury we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We've turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, but he humbled himself and opened not his mouth. He was brought like a lamb to the slaughter, and like a sheep that's dumb before his shearers. He didn't open his mouth. But by oppression and false judgment, he was taken away. And who of his generation who considered? He was cut off from the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. That describes the endurance of Jesus, going through all of those kinds of things. And woven in the middle of that scripture, he says, his sufferings so that we might have peace, so that we might be healed. Having your eyes on the prize before us. We've heard that phrase a lot, eyes on the prize. Did you know that was biblical? That's what Paul said, to have our eyes fixed on the prize before us. Because that's the way Jesus faced the cross. And he reflects the Father, who has endurance through everything we do and say that hurts and burdens him. His hesed, his loving kindness, mercy, and grace endures forever. So when we endure with our eyes on the prize, we're reflecting God. So what helps me to have endurance is not to look at what I'm going through today, is I have to continue to remind myself of the prize. The prize not only of how I want to look and how I want to feel, but the prize and the crown of reflecting my God and my Messiah, Jesus. I hope that means something to you and maybe helps you to endure something today. Keep your eye on the prize.